Well, greetings to you all, and it's great to see all of you brothers and sisters here, all of you scattered across the North American division. Welcome to our PGTS webinar. Today is a joyful day, as I was just sharing with you a moment ago. Today we announced the official launch of the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, and we are very excited about this day. This Adventist branded donor advised fund has been brought to us by BNY Mellon. We've got Carlos Byrne here today from BNY Mellon to help share this information with you. And this Adventist Donor Gift Fund is a highly versatile new giving tool that we're hoping that all of your donors will be able to use. And this will certainly be able to benefit every Adventist organization, especially those operating here in the United States. So we're very excited about this. In addition to this exciting news, we are also trying something new and innovative here with our webinar today, something unique. You see today on this webinar, we're not just giving the presentation, but we're also going to be having a roundtable discussion immediately afterwards. So this is going to be in the second hour, and in the roundtable discussions, we're going to break out into small groups where you all can discuss what was presented here during the first hour. And hopefully you'll be able to share some ways that you feel that donors will be able to benefit from the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, and maybe also ask some questions on how this fund works. So hopefully you all will be able to stick around for the second hour. But before we get into too deep into the presentation, as is our custom, I'd like to pause and have a word of prayer. So please bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much that you give us this opportunity to come together and to learn more about the ways that we can serve you and serve our donors. And we pray that as Dennis and Carlos is presenting this information today, that you can empower them and give them the words to present, so that everyone who is watching this now and in the future will be able to be better equipped to work with their donors and to present to them this wonderful new tool. So be with us today and lift us up so that we may glorify you. We pray this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. So a couple of announcements, a couple of housekeeping items before we get into the presentation. Today's webinar is going to be 2 hours, and those who stick around for the roundtable discussion, you'll have earned 2 continuing professional education credits for your PGTS certification. And you can self-report that through the PGTS portal. You can do that at any time. We are recording the first hour of this presentation. It will be available for on-demand viewing within an hour or two after the session is over. And we're going to place the recording on the Adventist Learning Community webpage. And I'm putting a link to that in the chat right now. And we'll also provide a link and an email we'll send out after the session is over. And in that email that we send out, we're going to give you an opportunity to not only access the on-demand viewing of the webinar, but we're also going to give you an opportunity to report your CPE. We put a link in there for you to do that. And we also include a survey in there about today's presentation. We're always trying to make these better. So please take that survey and share your thoughts with us. Our next webinar is going to be a few months down the road. We're going to be taking a bit of a summer break, give you all a chance to attend your camp meeting presentations and GC session for those who are going there. And maybe some of you have some vacation planned with the kids and whatnot. So our next webinar is going to be in August, and that's going to be, of course, on a Thursday. That's Thursday, August 11th. Starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, as always. And in that webinar, we're going to have some speakers from a panel of people from Western Adventist Foundation. And so this will be an opportunity for you all to get to know more about Western Adventist Foundation and what they can do for you. And if you're one of those organizations that hasn't yet called upon them to help with your PGTS program, I'm sure they will share with you some wonderful ways that they can help you and get you out of the back room of your PGTS office and into the living room of your donor so you can help with creating some new gifts. So that's our next webinar, and that's a couple months down the road. In today's webinar, we are going to give you the opportunity to ask some questions, and we'll block off about a 10-minute period at the end of the presentation. So we encourage you during the presentation, if any questions come up, to put them in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring those questions that come in, and I'll present them to Carlos and to Dennis at the end of the presentation. And then we'll also give an opportunity for those people who want to raise their hand and unmute themselves. We'll let you ask a live question as well. And then, of course, after that first hour, we're going to break out into our roundtable discussions, and I'll give a little bit more information about that at that time. Our speakers today are no strangers to you all in the PGTS program. We've got Dennis Carlson, who is, of course, the GCNAD PGTS Director. And Dennis has been in this position now for nearly 7 years or so. And, you know, Dennis was really the one that was shepherding the Adventist Donor Gift Fund through all the necessary committees here at the GC and getting this approved. So if you like what you hear today, we can certainly praise God for Dennis Carlson. I'm sure he would give the glory to God, but I'm sure you could also thank Dennis, and he would appreciate that as well. We also have Carlos Byrne, who is the National Director for Donor Advised Fund Services at BNY Mellon, and he has also played a vital role in bringing the Adventist Donor Gift Fund to us today. Carlos has been a delight to work with from start to finish on this project, and I, for one, really appreciated about how, despite all the complexities that we brought to this, there was never anything that Carlos said he couldn't do or that BNY Mellon couldn't do for us. And so he was always able to figure out a solution and make this fund the best that it can be. So for that, Carlos, thank you very much for doing all of that. And now I would like to turn this over to Carlos and Dennis so that they can share with us some information about this Adventist Donor Gift Fund.
Well, good morning, everyone. Afternoon, everyone, I should say. And first and foremost, on behalf of BNY Mellon, I'd like to thank you all and thank the church for partnering with BNY Mellon on this wonderful opportunity to present another giving vehicle, another giving opportunity for your donors. What we thought we'd do is just level set to make sure everybody has the same understanding of how a donor advised fund works. Fairly simple vehicle, if you think about it. It is a fund that's maintained at a sponsoring organization, which is a fancy way of saying a 501c3. And when a donor opens this account at the sponsoring organization, he or she can make gifts of cash, marketable securities, and increasingly what we're starting to see are gifts of non-cash assets, things like cryptocurrency, real estate, privately held stock, private equity, and the like. So a great vehicle for being able to make those types of gifts. And in the year that donor makes those gifts into their donor advised fund, they're eligible for a tax deduction. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that once that gift is made, the donor loses all legal control of the asset in the donor advised fund. But as you can see from the slide, they have two privileges that they maintain. They have the ability to recommend how the account is invested. So they can recommend some investment strategies. They also can recommend grants out or distributions out of that donor advised fund to what the IRS deems are qualified charities. So you see here a gifting phase and a granting phase. And the key about the grants is the grants don't have to happen in the same year the gift is made. They can happen over time. They can be planned out. There can be some strategic planning around the distribution of those grants to charities. Now, in the case of the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund is the sponsoring organization. And as we can see from the next slide, what the gift fund is going to be doing is handling sort of all the back office functions of the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. And what this slide basically does is list all the categories of back office functions that the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund is going to support your program with. Think about, when you look at this slide, think about you and your donors in the middle. That's the stewardship piece. You're working with your donors, you're stewarding them. If they're interested in a donor advised fund, or they open a donor advised fund and you need some expertise, or you want to bounce a question off, or you just need some general resources in any of these categories, the folks at BNY Mellon are available, along with, of course, Dennis, Scott. They can also answer questions as they help to craft this this offering. The key point to remember here is that the relationship remains with you and your donors. BNY Mellon, we're really going to be in the background. We're here to be those extra set of hands, lend that back office support, so that you can really concentrate on your donors and on your other responsibilities as fundraisers and the like. So let me stop there and have Dennis give you some more detailed information.
Yeah, Carlos, thank you. And I'm excited, along with Scott, to be able to see this new planned giving tool called the Adventist Donor Gift Fund launched today. And to emphasize what Carlos said very well, BNY Mellon is the legal owner of the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. It approves all applications, issues the receipts to the donors, invests the funds according to the donor recommended alternatives, files all the income tax documents, provides 24/7 online secure donor portal, and processes all grant advice. Now, BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund does all these functions and much more. So your time spent on the Adventist Donor Gift Fund can be 100% spent directly working with the donors, and 0 time in the back room doing paperwork. So who may donate to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund? All adults who have a US bank account, a US dollars bank account located in the United States. Any person who is over the age of majority may open and donate to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Multiple donors may contribute to the same Adventist Donor Gift Fund, and donors need not be citizens or Seventh-day Adventist members to donate to the Seventh-day Adventist Gift Fund. So just to kind of review how that works again, the key here is your organization is the participating organization that is developing the relationship with the donors. And once you have developed that relationship and you have a donor that's ready to open an Adventist Donor Gift Fund, then you would work with them. You could even help them fill out the application. Once that application is approved by BNY Mellon, then the donor funds the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. BNY Mellon, when they receive the completed gift, issues a tax-deductible receipt to the donor. At that point in time, the donor then can make donations to your charity or to other charities. And we'll get into just how that works in just a moment. So the minimums for the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, we've tried to keep them low so we can be very inclusive and donor friendly with these minimums. To open an Adventist Donor Gift Fund, a donation of $1,000 is required. There is no maximum donation. So minimum additional donations to an existing Adventist Donor Gift Fund is $250. The minimum balance, of course, is $0. And the minimum grant to any one charity is $250. Now, the maximum grant is just limited by the balance in your gift fund. So when you get ready to open an account, The documents may be found at the websites listed here on the screen. There's one on the willplan.us site that will give you a link to get to the BNY Mellon Adventist Donor Gift Fund site. And you can get all the documents there that you need to give to your donor and prepare your donor for opening an Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Once the donor has filled out the application, then the forms are submitted to BNY Mellon. That can be done by email, mail, or fax. And the Adventist Donor Gift Fund applications are approved by BNY Mellon. Now, Carlos, tell us about some of the information and the questions that are asked on the application.
Sure, Dennis. So some of your donors may be taken a little aback when they see some of the information that's being asked. I just want to take a step back and say there are two documents that are necessary for an account to be opened. There's the application, which is basically just an intake of the biographical information for the donor. So the normal contact information as you see here, but some of the things that you may not have thought to see on an application for a donor advised fund would be things such as the source of income and the donor's source of wealth, whether or not they're what's called a politically exposed person or PEP, which means that they're involved in some way with government. And of course, a social security number. The reason why this information is being collected is because all of the donors and anybody involved with a donor advised fund account with the Adventist Donor Gift Fund is going to undergo basically a know your customer type screen. And that's really for the protection of the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Okay, we want to make sure that the person who's giving the funds, doesn't have something nefarious going on, and that there isn't any hidden information about them that could ultimately endanger or damage the reputation of either the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund or the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. And this last bullet point here, names to avoid. Your donors have the ability to name their account. And the only thing that is being asked is that they not include the words foundation, trust, or endowment in the name of their account. And the reason for that is because all of those have a legal definition and they are not donor advised funds. So in order to avoid any confusion, that's all we ask. Most people will use the word fund in the name, such as, the Carlson Family Fund. But it can really be anything. We have a number of names such as, Compassionate Giving Fund, Charitable Heart Fund, and the like. So Dennis, if you want to go to.
Yeah, just so you know that all contributions to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund are irrevocable and all contributions are non-refundable. So the donor needs to be aware that they are, once they give these funds, they can't get them back. So, and again, the receipts are issued by the BNY Mellon at a charitable donor fund when donations are completed. So it's key there that donations are completed. Now, what type of assets can you give? When donations are contributed to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, a variety of assets, as Carlos has kind of alluded to, and methods can be used to give those assets. Cash, of course, is always the easiest, has to be in US dollars. If using a check, the check would be made out to BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund. You may use electronic transfer or ACH to contribute to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. And again, the effective date of the contribution is when there is an unconditional delivery of the asset to BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund. And this may become important at calendar year end. If donations are mailed, the donor should use the U.S. Postal Service. Again, if donations are sent to BNY Mellon, use the United States Postal Service, since postmark date completes the donation. The donation is not complete until BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund receives the contribution at their location if sent by UPS or FedEx. So non-cash assets may also be used to fund the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Cash equivalents or stocks and bonds. And also what is referred to as complex assets are also can be used, but they're evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Now, those complex assets could be commercial or residential real estate, limited partnerships, LLCs, as Carlos mentioned before, cryptocurrency. But there's many other assets that could be also used, but on any complex asset, check with BNY Mellon to determine if the donation would be acceptable for the Charitable Gift Fund. Once the donor or the primary advisor, so the donor that is applying and opening the account is also the primary advisor for that account, has funded the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, 2 accounts are set up. And this is where things may be a little different than other donor advised funds that you may be familiar with. These 2 accounts. There's a Seventh-day Adventist participating organization restricted account, and there is also a discretionary account. Now, the restricted account, Seventh-day Adventist only restricted account, 25% of all donations to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund go to the Seventh-day Adventist only that is restricted to your organization. So the minimum percentage is listed at 25%, but that percentage may be increased by the donor at the time of contribution. So the discretionary account then operates very much like most other donor advised funds, in that 75% of the fund donation goes into this account, and the account may be granted to any qualified 501c3 or public charity. The donor may decide to grant the discretionary account funds to your organization. All distributions from the discretionary account will not be identified in the distribution letter as being from the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. The donor may identify themselves, but the Adventist Donor Gift Fund will not be identified from the discretionary account. So just to review again how that works, you work with your donors. They set up an Adventist Donor Gift Fund. These 2 accounts is the discretionary account and the restricted Seventh-day Adventist only account. The funds that are in the restricted account can only go to a participating Seventh-day Adventist organization. Now, on the discretionary account, they can go to any public charity, but they can also go to your organization, because every organization here today is a public charity. Succession planning is important for the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, just like having an estate plan is for planned giving and trust services. So what happens to the donor Adventist Donor Gift Fund accounts when a donor primary advisor resigns from being that position or becomes incapacitated or dies? The donor may designate one joint advisor, and the joint advisor has the same privileges as the primary advisor, except they cannot replace the primary advisor. The donor may designate a successor advisor for both the primary and the joint advisor. That this person would take over after the primary or joint advisor resigns or is incapacitated or dies. Authorized representative can be appointed by the donor, and this person may have access to the portal and recommend grants. An authorized representative may make contributions and make grants recommendations for the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, but may need the approval of the primary donor advisor. A third-party read-only access, like for financial advisors, is also available on the portal. And the donor may designate charities to receive the Adventist Donor Gift Fund balances in the discretionary account when they die. The discretionary balances may be directed to your organization. All fund donations to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund that were initially split by the ratio of 25-75 into two accounts. Subsequently, the donor may request that all of the discretionary account be transferred to the restricted account. Once transferred to the balance to the restricted account, those funds can only go to the organization that is listed on that account, and that usually would be as a participating organization. The donor may designate a beneficiary for the discretionary account, but the restricted account balance will only go to the restricted participating organization when the donor passes away. Carlos, tell us a little about the investment strategies that are offered through the Adventist Donor Gift Fund.
Sure, Dennis. And just a reminder, everyone, when somebody makes a contribution into their donor gift fund, they have the two privileges: the grants that Dennis just talked about, and the ability to recommend an investment strategy. We're happy to say that there are 16 different investment recommendations that are available to your donors. The first one that you see here are ESG, which really stands for environmental, social, and governance. So these are essentially responsible investment options. They're screened for certain items. I will point out, however, that at this point, they are not screened at the same level as the Seventh-day Adventist Church screens. They're not available at this point, but as the Adventist Donor Gift Fund grows, there may be an opportunity to offer an SDA screened pool. So we're excited about that potential opportunity. And you'll see here, if a donor has $3 million or more in either their Adventist only account or the discretionary account, that particular account can be invested in a customized manner using individual stocks and bonds rather than participating in one of the pools that we're talking about, which are generally comprised of mutual funds and ETFs. If we go to the next option, you'll see here that there are what I would call traditional actively managed pools. And you see it's got the full range of allocations from a cash reserve, which is 100% cash, all the way up through aggressive growth. And typically when we talk to donors about their investment strategy, obviously, first and foremost, we're looking at their values, which is why we always like to present the ESG ones first. But then we're also looking at what is their plan for giving. Do they plan to make a lot of grant distributions in a short period of time? If that's the case, then probably something in the cash reserve or with high level of fixed income to be a little bit more stable, which, for those of you following the markets, I guess I'm saying that with a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, because even fixed income seems to be getting embroiled with all this volatility, but hopefully it's in the short term. But for those donors who maybe want to grow their fund a little bit more, one of the advantages of a donor advised fund is that any appreciation within a donor advised fund is tax-free to the donor. It simply allows her or him to be able to make even more grants or distributions out of the fund than what they originally put in. And so the point here, just because a donor chooses an investment allocation doesn't mean that they're stuck with it. They have the ability to change it whenever they want. They can actually make that recommendation online through your branded donor portal that's going to be offered to them. And again, this is one of those things that the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund is available if there are questions that the donor has or that you have about an investment strategy. You need a third party to just kind of ask some questions or have them ask questions of. That's what we're available for. The third option is really giving a donor the ability to create an asset allocation of their own using index funds or passively invested. So these are very inexpensive funds. If you have a donor who's looking at the value and the cost of investing, these are going to be the least expensive. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of these that have a cost of zero because they are BNY Mellon proprietary. And so rather than charging for it, we're offering it at zero for your donors. And again, there are a lot of individuals who like to use passive investing because then they're essentially following the market rather than working with active managers who might be subject to a little bit more of that volatility or larger swings in the volatility rather than versus the sort of the index funds. So at the end of the day, I will say that the offerings that you have for your gift fund are on par with the types of investment strategies being offered by a lot of those very, very large donor advised fund programs that you see out there. The Fidelities, the Vanguards, the Schwabs, and certainly with a lot of the donor advised fund programs that are being offered through community foundations as well. So from an investment recommendation standpoint, we feel very confident that your donor will find something that he or she is comfortable with. Thanks, Dennis.
The initial cost of the Adventist Donor Advised Fund was a one-time expense to do all the creation that Carlos has been doing for us, but was paid by the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. So we are very grateful for the General Conference for taking care of that fee. There are no costs for Seventh-day Adventist organizations to join or participate. All costs are paid from the donor's account fees directly to BNY Mellon. And these fees are very competitive with other donor advised funds. There are two types of fees that are paid out of the donor accounts directly to BNY Mellon. There's an administrative fee and also an investment fee. For the first 500,000 in your accounts, it's 0.6% or 60 basis points per annum. The fee reduces after the 500,000 if your balance goes higher than that. The investment fee vary based on the strategies that the donor chooses, but they range from 66 basis points to 15 basis points. All fees are deducted from the donor's account and paid directly to BNY Mellon. When you access the Adventist Donor Give Fund landing page, you will find all the resources to inform, assist your donor to contribute to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. From time to time, these forms may change. This is the only place where these forms are stored. So always get a fresh printout of forms when you are working with your donors. And these websites are currently active, and you can actually look at them right now. The existing donor login is where the donor logs in to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund portal. And the previous slide that I showed you, this is the top part of the page, this is the bottom part of the page. So this is where the donor would go to log into their secure online account. The donor may download the donor portal user guide, which will explain how to use the 5 basic functions of the online secure donor portal. Those are being able to view the activities of the account, the fund balances, to download statements, contribution activity, also the donation activity that has been taken place. And there's also a step-by-step guide that will help the donor make grants through the donor portal. So some frequently asked questions may be that what is a public charity? An example of public charity is everybody here today, all Seventh-day Adventist organizations are public charities. Most ASI organizations are public charities. Also charities like the Red Cross, and there's millions of more that are qualified public charities in the United States. Now, grants must go to qualified public charities, and the minimum grant to any one charity is $250. Oops. The grant requests must be in writing and may be submitted through the donor portal, but grants may not be made by telephone. Let me repeat that. Grants may not be made by telephone. Grants are processed within 10 days of the request, and grants may be anonymous, and that is the choice of the donor. The grant request form takes the donor through the process of making a grant. Now, if they would choose a subfund, those are the 2 accounts, discretionary and restricted accounts. If they choose the restricted account, there's no choice about where the money will go. It will go to the participating organization listed. But if they choose the discretionary subfund, then the amounts will go to wherever they designate. And the donor wishes to grant to another public charity, then they would do that through the discretionary subfund. So the donor may request an anonymity. And again, just to say, I think this is the 3rd time maybe, but BNY Mellon has final approval of all grants. Carlos, tell us about the grants that are acceptable and which ones may need to be avoided.
Absolutely, Dennis. One of the things about donor advised fund grants is that they really undergo 2 levels of due diligence. First and foremost, it's at the organization level. Is the charity, as Dennis has mentioned, a qualified charity? Is it a public charity? Is it qualified in the eyes of the IRS to receive donor advised fund grants. And you can see some examples here. Typically with donor advised funds, and I can say with certainty, with the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund, grants will not be made to a private foundation. They can be made to a private operating foundation, which functions very much like a public charity, but not to a private foundation. The reason I mention that is because a private foundation can make a grant to a donor advised fund, but not the other way around. The second sort of level of due diligence, and I will say that every single grant that your donors request, whether it's manually or through the portal, is going to undergo this level of due diligence. Once it's determined that the organization is qualified, then if there's any purpose that's been listed by your donor, that's going to be looked at. The IRS has some fairly strict rules around what a donor advised fund grant can be used for or not used for. At the end of the day, the IRS wants to make sure that a donor advised fund does not result in more than an incidental benefit for that donor. So there's some examples here, such as, a membership with benefits, such as a, free parking or free admission would not be something that would be allowed for a donor advised fund. Likewise, you can see at the top under not allowed, the grants cannot be made to any natural person. So they can go to support perhaps a scholarship or a mission, but they can't be given directly to that person who is performing the mission. Okay, it can be to help support him or her, but it can't go directly to them. Let's go to the next page, Dennis. One of the things that the IRS did with Notice 2017-73 was they went into more detail about some of these types of grants that could result in more than an incidental benefit. And I'm not going to go through this. I mean, these are the types of things that on a case-by-case basis, when we run into it, we're more than happy to discuss it with you and or the donor and to educate them about what can and can't be done. But I think it's important for everybody to understand what some of the parameters are. The other piece that sort of came out of this impact, though, if we could just go back for a second, Dennis, is the fact of bifurcation. Oftentimes you'll hear where somebody wants to be able to pay for a portion of, say, a dinner at a fundraising event, the deductible portion. Donor advised funds, the IRS sort of gave some guidelines here saying that donor advised fund grants cannot be used for any type of bifurcated event, anything like that. So the reason I bring this up is if you have donors who enjoy attending charitable auctions, who like going to fundraising dinners, perhaps there's a fundraising golf tournament or something like that, they may want to consider whether or not a donor advised fund is the best vehicle to use. While any of those things that I mentioned can be supported by a grant from a donor advised fund, the donor can't in any way have any benefit. So if they want to support that dinner, they can't buy the table or the dinner with their donor advised fund, or they can't participate in the golf tournament with that donor advised fund distribution. The other big piece that was mentioned on the next slide is the idea of pledges. For historically, pledges have always been something that was anathema when it came to DAFs. DAFs were not allowed to fulfill a pledge that an individual had. Well, this Notice 2017-73, the IRS gave guidance saying, well, actually, in order to encourage distributions out of donor advised funds, we're saying that now a donor advised fund can be used to fulfill a personal pledge, even a legally binding one. However, there's certain sets of rules that we would want the sponsoring organization and the donor to adhere to if we're going to do that. One of them, interestingly enough, is to make no reference to the existence of that pledge when the grant is being made to satisfy the pledge. So some people jokingly refer to it as a don't ask, don't tell notice. But really what it does is it puts the onus on the donor to have open communication with the charity that they have the pledge with, to let them know that they're going to be potentially satisfying that pledge through their donor advised fund. Now, because this was brought up in a notice, but it's actually never been codified, so it's not in the code right now. There are some organizations out there that are reluctant to fulfill a pledge with a donor advised fund grant. So the reason I bring that up is if you're in conversation with your donors and perhaps they have a pledge at their alma mater, and you're talking to them about a donor advised fund, you may want to have them just double check with the charity where they have a pledge to see if that charity is willing to satisfy the pledge obligation with the donor advised fund grant. But it is very clear in the notice that the IRS has said you can rely on this as guidance until further notice. And since 2017, there has been no further notice. So the stance of the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund is that we are more than happy to send a grant to satisfy a pledge, but we will adhere to these items here that the IRS has asked for in relation to that particular grant. Dennis?
Most grants out of donor advised funds are directed to public charities in the United States, but the Adventist Donor Gift Fund makes it very easy to make international grants that may be made to Seventh-day Adventist yearbook organizations anywhere in the world. Now, just to be clear, other donor advised funds can make grants outside the United States, but it's not an easy process and there may be fees involved. The grants may be recommended to any Seventh-day Adventist organization worldwide by directing the grant to the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists for the benefit of whatever that organization may be. So the General Conference is a public charity in the United States, so the grant goes there, and then the General Conference will transfer those funds directly to the organizations through their divisions. Now, direct international grants may not be recommended to non-Seventh-day Adventist organizations outside the US, but you may be able, your donors may be able to find supporting organizations within the US that might be able to support those organizations. Now, participating organizations do not have to be accredited to participate in the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. To receive grants or build relationships and recommend donors to use the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, they do not have to be accredited or certified personnel. The SDA organizations must be participating organizations to receive grants from the restricted Seventh-day Adventist only sub-fund of the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Organizations do not have to be participating to receive grants from a discretionary Adventist Donor Gift Fund account. Now, listed in alphabetical order are the Seventh-day Adventist yearbook organizations that would be included or qualify to be participating organizations. So conferences, and we've listed, you can see churches, elementary schools, community service centers, summer camps can all benefit by working through their conference. The conference would receive the distribution and then pass it along to those entities. The General Conference is also a public charity and can participate healthcare institutions, hospitals, clinics, higher education, colleges and universities, and then media ministries, the North American Division, publishing houses, retirement facilities, even 12th grade schools and academies that are listed in the yearbook, and unions can all become participating organizations in the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Now, how may your organization participate? Well, you qualify if you're up on this call because you're listed in the Seventh-day Adventist Yearbook. How does that happen? A representative from your organization completes the video orientation and passes the quiz. Everyone that is watching this has completed the video portion, or almost completed the video portion of this requirement. As part of the quiz, you will supply your organization's information to the Plan Giving and Trust Services North American Division office. It is encouraged that all persons who will work with donors in connection with the Adventist Donor Gift Fund view the orientation video, but only one person from each organization is required to provide your organization's information. So organization information will include the name of the organization, tax ID number or an EIN, address, point of contact, telephone number, email. Participating organizations will be listed on the willplan.us website as organizations eligible to receive Seventh-day Adventist only restricted grants from the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Once the webinar is over, you'll be ready to take the quiz. You may use either the QR code on your screen or the URL link that is on the screen, or that you will be sent in an email to go to the site to take the quiz. Your organization is responsible for marketing the Adventist Donor Gift Fund to your donors. The NAD Plan Giving and Trust Services Office will provide customizable promotional assets to you to promote the Adventist Donor Gift Fund under your organization's brand, similar to the advertising that has been provided in the past years. So the marketing talking points that you might want to use are the simplicity, the flexibility, and the possibility of the gift of legacy, passing along to your children or your grandchildren the joy of giving. Now, offering the Seventh-day Adventist Donor Gift Fund to your donors and promoting it under your brand, you would use your organization's all of your organization's communication channels, such as websites, social media, and newsletters. You have viewed a very brief overview of how the Adventist Donor Gift Fund works. To get all the details, you may download a copy of the Adventist Donor Gift Fund policies and guidelines from the website listed on the slide there. And that's where I'm referring to that as the BNY Mellon Adventist Gift Fund site. And when you get these policies and guidelines, they will have all the details of how the Adventist Donor Gift Fund works. I've been told that this policies and guidelines could be very helpful in passing the quiz. And the quiz is open book. Today is the official launch of the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. All the websites, the URLs listed here are functional and may be accessed by your organization and your donors. Please visit the BNY Mellon Adventist site to download all the information and forms needed to work with your donors to open an Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Scott, do we have any questions that have been put in the chat?
Oh, yes, Dennis. We've got a number of questions that have been brought in here, and so we'll try to get through as many as we can. And I've copied all of them down, so if we don't get to them, hopefully they'll be answered in the breakout rooms. But if we'll definitely reach out to everybody and provide an answer to them. But let me get started here. The very first question that was submitted asks, can the SDA restricted account be used for supporting ministries? Another related question was, how about self-supported independent SDA ministries?
As through the discretionary account, as long as it's a qualifying charity, public charity in the United States, it can be supported through the Adventist Donor Gift Fund.
Okay, but as a participating organization, they would not qualify. So they have to be a yearbook entity to be a participating organization. The next one, I think this next one might be a good one for Carlos. Someone was asking, what would be an example of an authorized representative?
Great question. So very often where we see an authorized representative is either a person who has a trusted financial advisor or trusted advisor who is making grants on their behalf. Sometimes it's a third-party professional. Sometimes it's a family member. And the other area that we see it is when folks are basically training their younger of age children, maybe they're 18, 19 years old, and they're trying to inculcate them into their values. And so they allow them to go out and search for charities and to make grants on their own. As Dennis had mentioned, with the authorized representatives, there's actually two options that the primary donor can choose. One is to have the authorized representative make a grant without needing any other approval. The other option is that every grant that an authorized representative makes has to be approved by the donor. And so that's in there in case they do want to have those great conversations with the kids or the grandkids who are old enough to hold a role. And frankly, sometimes what happens is you've got the grandparents own the account, their kids who are parents themselves are the authorized representatives, and then they've got the younger kids who are involved, and mom and dad are making the grants on their behalf, putting them as the recommender and getting them really involved in the giving.
Yeah, so the authorized representative is kind of a way of putting some guardrails or some training wheels perhaps on using the fund. This one I think is going to be directed at Dennis, and this is dealing with GCAS and their involvement with the fund. How has GCAS come up with guidelines on how these funds are being handled in the local accounting records? And I think this is a great answer. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, and actually I failed to actually mention that. I had it in my notes and failed to mention it. And I'm glad the question was brought up. It's a good question. And the good news is we don't have to deal with any of that. The Adventist Donor Gift Fund is not part of your trust review at all. So GCAS has nothing to do with it. And there's no accounting for those of you that are doing trust accounting. There's no accounting that you have to do for the Adventist Donor Gift Fund because the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund does all those back office things for you. So all you need to do is work with your donors.
Yeah, with BNY Mellon being the actual owner of the assets, we don't have to worry about any of the accounting or any of the tax reporting or anything. They're doing all the hard work. We just get to work with the donors and have the fun part.
Yeah, the only time I think there might be some involvement is when you actually get the grants from those donors.
Yeah, that's fun too.
That's the best part.
So another question that's coming in here is, what would you do if a non-Adventist donor chooses to donate to a 501c3 organization which is completely opposed to SDA doctrines?
Yeah, as part of what I mentioned, and it was kind of a subnote on one of the slides. That would only happen in the discretionary account. And all donations that are being made by all donors out of the discretionary account to any public qualified organization will not be identified as coming from the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. The donor may identify themselves and give contact information, but it will not be identified with the Adventist Donor Gift Fund.
Right. So the grantee letter that accompanies the check will have BNY, the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund logo, and it would say something like, "This is a grant from the Carlson Family Fund, a fund of the BNY Mellon Charitable Gift Fund." So that helps to avoid any issues like that. The one thing I will point out is that typically when you have a private label program like the Adventist Donor Gift Fund, the folks who are going to be participating in this are probably ones that share the values of the Adventists. So, just fortunately, that's really hasn't been an issue with other folks who have programs like yours, because you really have the folks who have an affinity for your organization, for your mission and the like. And what they're trying to do is demonstrate to their family, to the community, that affinity with the Adventists by having their donor advised fund with you all.
We have several other questions here, and we've come to the end of our first hour, but I have one more question that I want to ask, and I just want to reiterate to everybody that we will reach out to everybody who submitted questions and we'll answer you directly. But you feel free to bring them up in the roundtable discussions here in the second half of this webinar. But the question I want to ask, I think, is a really good one, and it's dealing with real estate that's donated to the Adventist Donor Gift Fund. Will the real estate be sold as soon as the fund is started? And then also, what is the maximum time horizon for funds that are in it? So it's kind of a two-part question. What's the maximum time horizon for funds in the Adventist Donor Gift Fund?
What I'm hearing is the first question is about how fast would real estate be sold? No. The second question is, are there any deadlines to distribute the funds? I guess that's the other one. I'm thinking that's what they're meaning.
Yes. Yep.
So the real estate, I can tell you, would be sold as quickly as possible. And as you know, working in plan gaming and trust services, sometimes that can happen in a week. Sometimes it's a year. So it just depends on the real estate, but it would be sold as quickly as possible. BNY Mellon works with a third-party organization. Some of you that have been around a while remember Brian Klontz from some of our conferences has made presentations. His organization is the one that handles those complex type assets. Now, at this point in time, there is no mandate that you have to distribute anything out of a donor advised fund or the Adventist Donor Gift Fund in any time period. Now, Congress has been talking about this for several years of changing how that works, but at this point in time, you can not grant anything out of that fund for 10 years, or you can give it away all in a few months if you choose.
Yeah, I would say this is where the stewardship comes in, and the ability for your donors to even set up recurring grants. So if they wanted to support your organization over the course of a number of years, they can just put up one grant, a recurring grant, an annual grant, or monthly, or whatever it is, and that will just keep going. So that's one way to sort of artificially have this required minimum distribution that's not required, but recommended. To get that going. So, but the great news with donor advised funds and all the legislation out there is that all of it would have a positive impact on your organizations, in that all of that legislation is trying to push those funds out of the donor advised funds maybe sooner than they might have gone. So it's all a positive there. In terms of any proposed legislation that's coming down the line.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen, for giving such a wonderful presentation. We have come now to the end of our first hour, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.